In 2007, Prince Charles took out a £20 million loan to buy this stately home in southwest Scotland, to save its unique collection of furniture and to use it as a means to help regenerate the local area. It was a huge financial risk, which attracted some ferocious criticism in the press.
Live dangerously, but it's worth trying rather than not trying at all, isn't it? You just sit there doing nothing. Well, maybe I would have done better to do nothing, and nobody would have criticised, would they?
They've been brilliant, they've been absolutely brilliant.
In a crucial year for the project, we've had unprecedented access to the Prince as he faces one of his toughest challenges yet: to pay back the money he borrowed.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, more than I can say, for your constant and continuing support.
Win over the local community.
Have you seen this thing, look? They washed it specially this morning.
The whole point about this, I think, is trying to think outside the box in terms of what you can do with a house like this.
And create a viable business on the estate in one of the most economically deprived parts of Scotland.
I think like all these things, it all takes time when you start, because it's hard for people to imagine what it's going to be like. And if it's just a few houses and a muddy building site, it takes time.
See who does these.
We'll argue. He doesn't just either agree or disagree.
I got very angry, I shouted at the television and threw things at it.
This is the story of one man trying to confound his critics and achieve his vision.
It's the story of Dumfries House.
Wonderful. This is a decent size of tree, this one.
As the lead individual on the project, Prince Charles, officially known as the Duke of Rothesay in Scotland, has visited Dumfries House as much as 5 times a year since purchasing the property in 2007.
So you get, takes that out to start with, and I'll look again. But I would have thought that was the obvious one, is to go down there, where the track is anyway, and come round.
Scotland is clearly very important to you.
Absolutely. Well, I spent so much of my life in Scotland, and I happen to love it.
Situated only half a mile from Cumnock in southwest Scotland and 45 minutes from Glasgow, Dumfries House was originally the home of the Bute family, who'd made their fortune building ports in the 18th century. Recently, the 7th Marquis of Bute found it too expensive to maintain, so he put it up for sale. But there was something very special about the property which galvanised the Prince and a number of others into trying to save it: its priceless collection of furniture.
The contents were so special because they happened to be the same as they were always when the house was built in the 1750s, and the Chippendale furniture was specially commissioned and everything else. And there are so few houses left now which still have their original furniture, so it was a very important collection.
The fear was that if the house and its furniture was not kept intact, the collection would be lost to the nation at auction. In particular, this Chippendale rosewood bookcase situated in the Blue Drawing Room. Made by Thomas Chippendale himself around 1768, he invoiced the first Marquis for £47 and 5 shillings, rather less than it's worth now.
This is the sort of essence of Dumfries, really.
Yeah.
This cabinet, Chippendale at his best.
You see, and I think this one would have gone for something astronomical, I think, in price.
Well, we're talking millions here, aren't
Yes.
we? Yeah.
And it is a very special piece and very unusual.
Estimates suggest that the Chippendale bookcase may have gone for as much as £15 million at auction, and each of these mirrors, original to the house, had an auctioneer's estimate of over £500,000.
This is the other joy, is you've got the mirrors that were made for those spots.
Yeah. But you know, these were all in packing cases, all in lorries, everything. With labels on. It was all down there. We stopped them. The lorries were stopped at 1 o'clock in the morning on the motorway in Cumbria.
On the way to the sale?
On the way to Christie's, and turned around and came back.
The consortium, led by Prince Charles, purchased the property and its contents for £45 million. £25 million had already been raised by other charities and agencies, including the Scottish Government. But no one else would bridge the £20 million gap, so the Prince stepped in, with a loan taken out by his charitable foundation.
You're not short of projects. You could very easily have thought, somebody else will sort that out, somebody will do it. Why you?
I remember trying to find a way of solving this problem without my having to get involved. Because I didn't particularly want to. I couldn't get anybody, as you can imagine, interested. So then when I heard that all the negotiations had come to nothing, and I'd seen too many other houses go down this route.
The Prince's plan was to build a property development at Knockroon on the edge of the estate, the sales returns from which would pay back the loan within 5 years. But within 12 months of purchasing Dumfries House, the banking crisis struck. No one saw it coming, and the world was launched into recession. Immediately, the Prince was forced to renegotiate the terms of his loan.
You borrowed 20 million. How big a worry was it?
Oh, huge worry. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking, help. Of course, the difficulty was, having done the actual deal, then a year later or 2 years later, the bottom fell out of the whole market, didn't it? So that made it very interesting, because of course, overnight, the value of everything went right down. So that it was introduced as another exciting factor.
By September 2010, the Prince's critics in the press were accusing him of recklessness. The only way he could now pay back the loan and get the money to finish the renovations to the house was to raise the money himself from private donors. If he couldn't do this, then his charitable foundation, which has provided millions of pounds to organisations like the Prince's Trust, could cease operating.
Do you mind having to constantly raise money?
Yes, it's an awful bother, really, but there we are. And but if you can, I mean, all I want to do is help in all sorts of different areas. So it's badly needed, and while I can go on doing it, I shall have to.
Another important reason for the Prince to buy Dumfries House was to do something to help the local area. Cumnock in East Ayrshire, one of the most economically deprived in Scotland.
Did you start by looking at just the house and then the sort of light bulb goes on, hang on, this could actually benefit?
Yes, because at the beginning, you know, when I first heard about this house, I had no idea actually it was here. You know, it was in an area of multiple deprivation. It could provide a real opportunity to make a difference by using the house as a focus for wider regeneration and opportunity, trying to raise aspirations and hope again when so much had disappeared.
Fiona Lees is Chief Executive of East Ayrshire Council. She knows that the Prince's investment in the area is sorely needed.
We've got high unemployment in this area. We've got a high level of dependency on incapacity benefit, and we've got a town that's in the past few years seen a significant decline with the decline of the mining industry. This is a community that's got its challenges. This is us just coming up to New Cumnock. It's a community just now with a population of about 2,600. It's a community that's more than halved in its size. In its peak in 1961, there's probably about 7,000 people lived here. In the last 10 years, as a council, we've demolished around 200 houses that we just couldn't let. That's never a decision that you take easily. Those are steps to nowhere now. I think it's an incredibly poignant picture, really, of a community that was and will be no more.
The real problem is that we've cut the roots, and how do you build them back up again? Because it's this sense of belonging and meaning in people's lives which matters so much. The great problem then is you lose, if you're not careful, that sense of meaning and belonging and identity and culture. And you lose that what I call community capital. And I think that people work and operate much better in identifiable communities. So it's how you build that sense of community, which I think is so vital.
It's late 2010, and interest payments on the £20 million loan are now as much as £92,000 a month. It's vital that the Prince raises the money to pay off this loan in the next year. Otherwise, his charitable foundation with an annual income of only £5 million, will be put under severe strain, and any hopes he has of using his efforts to help regenerate the local area will come to nothing.
The Prince has set himself a formidable challenge to use Dumfries House to kickstart the regeneration of the entire area, creating jobs and drawing in much needed investment, in effect transforming the community's economic fortunes. It's safe to say that no modern royal has ever attempted anything quite so ambitious.
Prince Charles helped purchase Dumfries House and its contents in 2007 with a loan taken out by his charitable foundation. He now has to raise the money to pay back the loan himself, and he must do so as soon as possible. And there's another financial deadline looming. Running costs on the estate are projected to be over £500,000 a year, and there's not much money left in the kitty. If the Prince and his team can't make the estate pay, then they'll have another huge financial burden to carry. It's early 2011, and Prince Charles and his team have come up with a master plan.
We spoke, sir, about the development of a master plan, and we thought it'd be quite useful to see what was there.
The hope is that the house will act as the main pull to generate income, hosting tours, but also trying to win a slice of the lucrative wedding venue and events market. A cafe and conference centre will be converted out of old stables nearby. And a rundown farm building near the estate's west entrance will become an upmarket guest house. To the north is an old walled garden which is being restored to its former splendour to draw in visitors and to encourage horticulture in local schools. And on the very eastern edge of the estate, by far the Prince's most ambitious project, the Knockroon property development, where there are plans for 600 homes. Aside from the revenue generation schemes, a working farm sponsored by Morrison's will teach people about food and sustainable farming.
Glad that cow didn't give you a belt when you were in there.
You're very courageous.
And an old sawmill will be converted into an education centre to teach traditional building skills to meet a need in the area.
Half of that is all this endless going around looking to see whether we can do this and do that, and then whether we can get it costed, can we then raise the money, and can we fit it into a budget and all this sort of business. So it's all just an endless long sort of jigsaw puzzle, you know.
To pay the ongoing costs of his plan, the Prince and his team must identify a range of individuals and organisations who want to buy into his vision, then match the projects to a donor's specific interest.
It certainly isn't easy, and there's certainly no magic formula. But actually, people like giving money. They like supporting good projects. They like being inspired, in fact, by other people. So yes, it's not easy, but it's fun.
The big fundraising push has already started, and heritage charity The Monument Trust, who also contributed £9 million to the purchase of Dumfries House, has agreed to gift a further £2 million to conserve and renovate the property, which shall be restored to how it would have looked in the 18th century. It's summer 2011, and the house has been reopened to the public for tours.
The eye mat is just to one side.
The cafe is also open for business, and the first paying visitors onto the estate are coming in.
But you see, this, I think, was always, well, I don't know, when I first came to the house, it is an incredibly special room, I think. And also it's the way the light comes in. We were lucky to see it today with a bit of sun. It doesn't often happen.
Have the Duchess and the Princess been up to see it?
Not my sons, no. I don't think it's
not their thing.
quite in their yet.
Yet. It was a yet.
But I mean, one day.
But the Duchess?
No, she is, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And liked
Not
it?
for a bit. So she hasn't seen the total transformation yet. perhaps this summer I think we might.
So when you take it around, will it be, I hope you like this one? Or...
Yes, or whatever. Probably not.
You'll be let know.
How could you have done that? Yeah, exactly.
The Prince has asked me to join him on the other side of the estate to visit his housing development at Knockroon. Developers have financed the initial stage of the build, creating up to 50 jobs.
The project was delayed for a year or so by the financial crisis and the housing crisis. The building started in April 2011 and is now on track.
While poor quality homes have been demolished by the council only 5 miles from here, Prince Charles hopes that Knockroon's eco-credentials can draw people back to the area from more affluent towns nearby, like Ayr.
They've had 1,000 people having a look over the last several months while it's being built. So at least there's interest.
Lead developers Anne and Ian Hope want to take the Prince around the show homes for the first time. Joining them is Andrew Hamilton, a developer who's worked closely with the Prince for over 20 years.
So you're going to tell me you don't like them?
I do like those, sir. They're quite similar.
But we've noticed the Dumfries House tea towel that we have over there.
9 out of 10 for 10.
As much of the material as possible is being sourced locally, with prices starting from £69,000 for a one-bedroom flat. And some of the rooms have been themed for the modern buyer.
Might not be, I'm not sure if it's your taste, but we do think it will appeal to potential buyers.
Bling.
Bling.
A lot of the house types have got double
Like
showers.
Medical would say, bling. That's brilliant. Gosh. And that's a bit of storage, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, linen cupboard. Oh, sorry.
French widow in the bedroom.
God, look at that. Fantastic.
Pretty cheerful in the morning when you woke up in there. Colour scheme aside, so what do you think?
It's interesting to see what you can do between the 2 and the 4 bedroom, isn't it?
Yes. The Prince's master plan needs profits from the sale of these homes to feed back into Dumfries House. But in one of the biggest recessions for decades, can these homes actually sell?
The deposit is the problem.
The first-time buyers needing at least a 20% deposit, and even for a £100,000 house, that's £20,000, and most people in this area just don't have that in the bank.
I mean, it's a great challenge here because there's net migration out of Cumnock at the moment, so we're hoping to reverse that. I mean, that's the goal, is to get people wanting to come back.
Yes.
So it's not an easy task.
It may be a difficult challenge, but the Prince has created a community from scratch before. The Poundbury development in Dorset was first started by the Prince 20 years ago, during the last big housing recession. At the time, it was a radical development, an attempt to create a mixed-use community with strong environmental credentials, and well before this cause was fashionable.
You always quite look forward to his visits, but you also slightly fear them because you're not quite sure what's going to come back at you, because you know he won't miss any of the details.
He tells me if he doesn't like it. He puts red squiggly marks through it. Or, Andrew, I can't possibly have that here. There's always some reaction anyway, whether it's positive or negative.
Poundbury is now a thriving community, with a population of over 6,000 people. But it's also in one of the most affluent parts of the country. Critics argue that the Prince will struggle to replicate his community in Dorset in the more challenging environment of Ayrshire.
I think he realises that it will take time. It'll probably take 5 to 10 years before the Knockroon scheme beds down. And after all, here we are at Poundbury, the one he did earlier. This has taken 20 years to get this far, and I think he is totally and utterly determined to see this thing through.
It's not just when the Prince is in Scotland that his project at Dumfries House occupies him. He also hosts monthly operations meetings at his London residence, Clarence House, to make decisions about the project.
And to get costings.
I mean,
around.
there is the outside bit as well, if you really want to, but that's
the orchard area below the...
And there's good news. After a long search and the Prince's contacts book plundered, the Rousing family, heirs to the Tetra Pak fortune, have agreed to donate £500,000 to pay for the first stage of work on the walled garden.
We've got the funding to do some of it anyway. But what I really think is probably needed is horticultural skill development.
Yes.
And that, it seems to me we've got a great opportunity here to link. The great secret always, I think, is first of all explaining to people what you're trying to do, but also thank people and encourage and persuade and cajole and everything else.
We've got 5 acres of garden.
If you then tell people what their money is doing, that, I think, also encourages people to come back again.
Situated to the northwest of Dumfries House, the Prince's vision is for the walled garden to help increase visitor numbers, who will then spend more money on the estate. Once a focus in the 19th century, it has long been neglected. It's October 2011, and an army of volunteers from the local community has turned up to help clear the site.
Really what we want to do is clear the entire walled garden until we see what's underneath it, and then start to plan for the future. So we envisage allotments, we envisage every school having its own little patch, and other groups who've got a commitment. It's a chance for everybody to be involved.
Given that I'm supposed to know a thing or two about gardening, the Prince has invited me along as he meets the volunteers.
Yes, I didn't realise that. Have you seen this thing, look? They washed it specially this morning. You're all exhausted?
One of the volunteers, Stuart, has been working particularly hard all weekend to help clear the site.
You look very handsome.
You're very kind. Flattery will get you everywhere. But were you working all yesterday as well? Were you?
Indeed.
Well done.
I was what, me?
Cleared this area and down below.
You did?
All on your own?
So you're not stopping now, are you? Because
I'm not stopping until I'm dead.
Well, if somebody got a spare spade, why he wants one.
The Prince's ambitions for the walled garden are undoubtedly impressive, with plans for a 3.5-acre formal garden and a food and hospitality academy. But given the many ways that the Prince could have helped the local area, I was interested why he thought the millions of pounds that will be spent here and across the estate is the best way of benefiting the local community.
People could say, why spend this amount of money on a project like this? Why not go into Cumnock? Why not do it there, in the existing town?
But you have to raise aspiration and hope before you get people coming again and starting businesses or locating it. That's the whole point of Knockroon, is to have it at the, so that it becomes attractive.
We want people to come and spend money, especially in East Ayrshire. And what His Royal Highness has started is a tourism trap for people to come, and nobody will keep coming back if there's nothing different for them to see. I mean, I've been there once, that's it. I've seen the Chippendale. That's finished. I rest my case. Thank you.
You let him have it.
Not play devil's advocate.
Someone who's already benefiting directly from the Prince's investment at Dumfries House is 32-year-old Thomas Breckney, who's been employed as a guide. Born and bred in Cumnock, he'd struggled to find work for nearly a year.
It's not a dragon because a creature only has 2 legs. In heraldry, a dragon will always have 4. Not only am I pleased to be employed, which goes without saying, but I feel quite privileged and quite lucky, and I'm very aware of how fortunate I am to be in the position. It's just a great relief to not worry about how you're going to get through the year, and you can make plans for the future.
Part of Thomas's responsibility is also to assist the curator of Dumfries House, Charlotte Rostek.
I was hired as a guide, but within a few days it was, Thomas, can you help me move this? And then, how much is it worth? And they'll say, don't think about it.
Which is a bit difficult when you're surrounded by hundreds of antiques on a daily basis, including 4 Gobelin tapestries and, of course, the priceless collection of Chippendale furniture. Today, Thomas and Charlotte must move 2 antique paintings that have hung in the great steward's dining room for 80 years, this to allow for electrical work.
Right, straight, up, 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 up. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking, considering the values you're carrying. And it's a mixture somehow of the physical strength, calculating, how this thing is going to move and maneuvering it in concert with the other people. So it's quite an accomplished task. But we've done it well. That was good. Well done, everybody.
It's December 2011 and winter has arrived. With fewer people expected onto the estate, tours of the house are now only available at weekends. It's also a difficult time to sell homes, so at Knockroon they expect there to be no rush of sales until spring.
We don't say we're never going to sell, but we do think that it is more difficult to sell, and we expect to have less footfall and less reservations in December.
The Prince still has to pay back the money he borrowed to avoid his charitable foundation having to cope with the huge interest payments each month. And he still needs his projects on the estate to start generating enough money to cover running costs, because if he doesn't, his vision of using Dumfries House to help revitalise the local area will not be realised.
Fear of failure, do you entertain it?
Oh yes, of course, but absolutely. But it's part of the essential issue of taking risks, isn't it? So if it doesn't work, and there are plenty of people out there hoping it isn't going to work, well, maybe I would have done better to do nothing. Nobody would have criticised, would they? But you've got to get stuck in and try to make a difference. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it can be slightly more exposed in my position. As I was saying, live dangerously. But it's worth trying rather than not trying at all, isn't it?
It's January 2012, and Prince Charles needs his various projects on the estate to start bringing in an income as soon as possible. The house itself is now taking bookings as a wedding and events venue, generating a projected income of £150,000 a year, which will go a long way to covering the estate's running costs. But the guests at weddings and events will need somewhere to stay, so plans to convert a farm building on the edge of the estate will have to be brought forward.
This becomes...
Is the staircase all right?
Yeah, we'll be doing that now.
The funding team has worked hard to match the project with a donor, and Sheikh Mohammed El Khariji, head of a Swiss-based hotel group, has provided £1.5 million to fund the renovations. The wedding season starts in April, just 3 months away. And with bookings already in the diary, there's pressure on Mark Robson, who'll run the guest house, to get things moving.
It's going to be manic, that's all I can say. It's going to be enjoyable. Stress level's going to be really high, but we'll get there. We'll get there, we will. We've got to get there.
In charge of the interior will be Annabel Elliott. She's a renowned interior designer who's well placed to interpret the Prince's taste. She's the Duchess of Cornwall's sister and Prince Charles's sister-in-law.
I think the benefit of having Annabel on board is the fact that she knows the Prince, she knows how he works, she knows what he likes, what he doesn't like. It saves time, and I think it also saves a lot of money as well.
Look, okay, as of this morning, we have a bathroom. And so this will be darker, cosier, books, old leather furniture.
He always likes to be completely involved and know what's being suggested.
And this is where one of the 4 posters from the house is going. He's looking at every little piece of material. What's this for? Is that for a chair? Where's that sourced from? Has it got nylon in it? Doesn't like duvets. It's all that kind of thing. Very, very important to him. We'll argue. I'll say I really think actually, so we'll definitely have a good, healthy, he doesn't just either agree or disagree.
Annabelle knows the Prince thinks the look of a room can sometimes be spoilt by a widescreen TV.
I'm not envisaging Mark a mammoth great screen here.
Which presents a problem when you're kitting out an upmarket guest house.
I think we can't hide the TV here. I think it's on a table here. And maybe for the visit we'll put plants in front of it or something, and lamps or whatever.
Yeah, we'll dress it up somehow.
He will look at everything. His eye for detail is quite extraordinary. I don't think I've ever worked with anybody who is so interested in the detail.
It's a point that many who've worked closely with the Prince over the years have noted.
There's obviously a great eye for detail here. I mean, how picky are you?
Well, I think so much is in the detail, actually, when you think about it. That's why it matters in the built environment. Because people don't always understand why they feel a certain place makes them feel better. But you very often need somebody at a young age to point these things out.
So how did you learn?
My grandmother.
Queen Elizabeth's grandmother?
Yes, she was very good at pointing out, saying, do look at that. You know.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah. Is it something you pass on? The art
try.
appreciation?
It depends if they want to listen or not. But I happen to be interested, or I notice things. I always have done. But if you're encouraged to, then I think it's it's even better.
The Prince and his team now estimate they'll need upwards of £15 million in donations to make real the Prince's full vision for the estate. As well as this, the £20 million loan is still outstanding, generating huge interest payments that could cripple the Prince's charitable foundation in the long term.
Are there secrets? Are there little knacks of getting folk involved, drawing them in?
It's taking trouble with them and making them feel special and wanted and thanked. And you just keep coming back. I mean, I do keep coming back all the time, so I hope people realise that I'm, serious about it.
Over the past 12 months, the Prince has hosted 5 dinners at Dumfries House to thank supporters of his charities from across Asia, America and Europe. Tonight is another such occasion. But the evening also has an extra role to play. Craig and Mark are both 20. After a difficult few years of not being in education or long-term employment, they're now receiving support from the Prince's Trust.
Which is a fork and spoon. The fork always points to the knife and the spoon crowns the fork.
Tonight will act as their final interview for a job at Dumfries House, which is welcome good news.
It wasn't so much that I was depressed, I was just down, and I used to send CVs to 20 different places, and I'd be lucky if I got a reply from one of them.
Craig and Mark will be assessed as they serve one of the main tables at the fundraising dinner.
Now that I know Prince Charles has got to be here, I'm starting to get really nervous.
It's 6 p.m. and the guests are starting to arrive, many of whom in the past have contributed large amounts to the Prince's other charitable projects. They'll be served smoked trout and salmon pillow, followed by slow-cooked mutton and locally sourced veg. For dessert, bread and butter pudding. And luckily for me, I've received an invitation.
Apart from being a great social occasion, this is also a chance for the Prince to ask friends and business leaders to help support the project. Without their financial contributions, the Prince's vision for the regeneration of East Ayrshire will struggle to survive.
Having been seated at the Prince's table, I had a front row view of his speech.
One of the reasons I took on this risk here at Dumfries House is because I felt that with its location in an area which was suffering from a great degree of deprivation, that here was a real opportunity to try and do something which might at least help towards the regeneration of this area of southwest Scotland. We've been able to represent the house to the public. People are now fortunately becoming more aware of this place and of its unique importance. But, and this is the point I really want to make tonight with all of you here, ladies and gentlemen, I can't do any of it without you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, more than I can say, for your constant and continuing support. I hope you can see where it goes to. Thank you.
These dinners, held on a regular basis since 2008, have been key to paying back the initial loan the Prince took out to purchase Dumfries House. As of February 2012, the entire £20 million has been repaid, and 11 of the 15 million needed to fund the other projects on the estate has been raised. The following week, both Craig and Mark are told they've got the job as stewards at Dumfries House, the first job either of them has had for over a year.
We found out we got the job on the Monday after the dinner on Sunday.
It makes you feel quite important because you've got the dressing butlers uniforms. It's really good. I'll be treating my girlfriend to something nice.
Maybe I should treat my girlfriend as well.
Yeah, maybe.
When you look at Mark and Craig and Thomas, who've had direct benefit from what's going on here, how does that make you feel?
You know, the fact that you see them suddenly transformed into, you know, people who understand that they have something they can really give and provide, and skills of their own, and you see them blossom and develop as people, is, I promise you, hugely rewarding.
The Prince will next return to Dumfries House to open the guest house for the wedding and event season in only a matter of weeks. Unfortunately, the build is way behind schedule.
Can't imagine what it'll be like by then. The stress levels will be way up by then. I don't think Mark and I will be able to talk, will we?
No. Well, we'll be best of friends.
Yeah.
It's spring 2012, and Prince Charles has returned to his housing development at Knockroon to mark a significant milestone. The very first homeowners, the Wallaces, are measuring up for their new flat.
So have you shopped around?
Yes, I have. Husband's fed up.
Anyway, are we going to go and have a look?
Yes, I think this is. And this is our kitchen. The boiler and everything's in here.
Marvellous. Nice.
The washing machine dryer.
Did you choose?
I chose this, and the trunks and the tiles.
Yes,
and that's with fridge freezer there.
Yeah. Marvellous. So that's all hopefully going to work.
And as I say, we've got our blinds and everything all ordered.
Is that M&S then, is it?
That's M&S, that's M&S, And we're wardrobe at M&S. And that's all our curtains. Just waiting to get put up. We put up the rails yesterday.
Brilliant. And you must come see Dumfries House and see how that's getting on. Have you been to have a look?
We were there just before Christmas. We were invited down. Yes.
We'll see you soon.
Right, thank you. Bye.
It's now 6 months since the properties first went on sale to the public. Over 5,000 people have come to look round the show homes. Only 3 properties have been sold.
And this bit here is again
cottage.
For that.
The Prince and his team will need to sell many more homes over the coming months if Knockroon is to turn in a profit. There's also a considerable risk to the Prince's reputation if his housing development doesn't progress further and help regenerate the local area.
Do you remember with Poundbury, it took quite a long time as well, didn't it? To get things going, do you remember? And people had to come and have a look. But what has been the... I remember down in Dorset 22 years ago, it all takes time when you start from scratch, but I mean they've had 5,000 visitors or something, which is, as they were saying, 10 times more than you get normally. So people are interested because it's hard for people to imagine what it's going to be like. And if it's just a few houses and a muddy building site, it takes time, you know. But I think to have 3 or 4 sales is remarkable.
On the other side of the estate, the Prince will officially open the guest house in only 2 days' time.
So again, I can see them up there. I'm seeing them everywhere now.
Yeah.
The Prince needs the projected income from weddings and events at Dumfries House to cover a huge chunk of the estate's running costs. The guest house will provide accommodation when the season begins.
I'll get that sorted, the paint and decorate, I'll get that.
And again, look round the
Yeah,
door.
door frame's going in next.
We're not going to put the big rug down.
Right.
Leave the... Needs probably a bit of a wax on here, I would think, wouldn't you?
It's been lacquered.
It's been lacquered?
Yeah, it's
always
been lacquered, yeah.
Okay.
I think wax might make it too slippy.
It's April the 4th, the day of the official opening.
You can imagine it's been a bit of a rush to try and get it ready by today.
Yeah.
Which probably was a little bit ambitious. But on the other hand, if we don't have something to show now, you know, you miss another season.
Yeah.
Large footprints. There.
Hey!
After all that.
For Annabelle, it's the anxious moment of whether her work will get the royal seal of approval.
Has come from up here. And obviously, I know one of the things you're going to say is not enough pictures, but we haven't got them yet. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming.
These look very nice.
Yes, they're quite nice and comfortable.
Very nice.
You know, they need to be sat in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're terrific. But this looks frightfully nice, this one.
Yeah, that's a nice old leather one I found.
Oh, God.
I like to think of the long
Never get out of
seats.
this.
And also for people to come here to feel cosy and comfortable, you can put your feet up, which of course you can't.
Gracious, look at this.
Well, again, I wanted to give a bit of kind of people feel excited about it, so it's like a wing chair.
It's not one of those ones like in Inspector Clouseau, remember when it says Budong?
Show you in here, which is the dining room. I knew there'd be certain things that he would pick up. So the moment we went into the dining room, because he likes rugs everywhere. Where's the rug, Annabelle? Coming, sir, coming, coming, coming.
And every room has a television, of course.
Of course, every
I'm afraid.
Did you get away with the televisions?
I put a few bunches of flowers and things and lamps in front of them, and he did say, oh, television in every room. So I did get away with that, yes.
Here's to you. Well done.
Thanks, Alan, very much.
With the guest house now open, an important revenue stream for the project is in place. And across the estate, work is progressing quickly to draw in more visitors and to boost income. The rebuilding of the walled garden will begin in earnest this June, ready for an opening in 2013. The cafe continues to be popular, and at Knockroon, the big spring sales push is already underway. Despite this, the Prince will need to continue fundraising for the foreseeable future.
Do I think we're going to be self-sustaining within the next 3 or 4 years? No, I don't think we are. But I think there will be a need to set up some form of endowment fund. If we could raise a £5 million endowment fund, that might produce £200,000 a year. That covers kind of half of the running deficit. And my ambition on the financial side is to increase income and to bridge the rest of the gap.
That's the focal point.
As the Prince approaches his 65th year, an age when most of us are retiring, there is no sign that his commitment to Dumfries House is waning.
Will the moment come where you feel, my work here is done, I will now drift off onto something else?
I mean, I'll always go on taking a real interest in here. I couldn't not now. But obviously, you know, we've still got a lot to do. It's not finished by any means. We haven't raised all the money. But yes, I mean, the aim is obviously to achieve, if we can, self-sufficiency.
Just over 12 months ago, Prince Charles's project was at a low. Dumfries House needed renovating, a derelict farm building was no place for guests, the walled garden hadn't been tended for decades, and the Prince was already saddled with £20 million worth of debt. Now, he's raised a total of £31 million to make real his vision for the estate, employing 50 people from the area with 250 volunteers. His commitment can tell us a lot about what drives the man who is next in line to the throne.
I keep coming back to the point about tackling these really, I think, huge issues in terms of the impact that's going to be felt by our grandchildren. Because if you don't endlessly try to draw people's attention to the issues and the real difficulties that they're going to be faced with, or we're going to leave them as ghastly legacy if we're not careful. I couldn't face my grandchildren when they turn around and say, why did you do something about it at the time? So I'm absolutely determined my grandchildren aren't going to say that to me.